was really planning my entire day around drinking. So basically, I'll go start my day drinking wine before going to work to get going, and then figure out how to drink mid-morning. And then at lunchtime, I'll walk to whatever little package store and get those little vodka bottles and then mix with Red Bull or just chug on its own. And then in the evening, go to the restaurant or the bar because I would figure out a way to make it official and make that part of the job. And then drink at home what I would deem to be a normal cup of beers or a couple glass of wine with dinner with my wife. And then go and the garage and do, hidden drinking, right? I would have stuff hidden in my car. So I'd go in the garage and chug whatever I had.
Can you imagine spending every hour of your day plotting when and where and how you're going to take your next drink? That sadly was the reality for today's guest, Cesar Wurm. And as you're going to hear, it actually gets much worse for him before he finally finds a way to recover from this addiction. I'm Rob Spee. I'm your host of Bold Journeys. Thanks for joining me. Alcoholism is something that hits around 10% of adults in the United States. That's way too many people. I've got way too many friends who suffer from this disease. My hope is that listening to Cesar's story will help anyone who might be suffering from addiction to alcohol or even other addictions. And I hope if you have any friends or family that suffer from this, you'll share this podcast episode and perhaps it will bring them some strength and hope as well. All right, let's jump right in with Cesar Wurm. Cesar, great to see you again. Welcome to Bold Journeys. We're talking today about the powers of addiction. You wrote a book on this topic, so you know something about it. I was thinking about my addictions. Fortunately, I've not ever had an addiction to drugs or alcohol. My addictions, I don't know if they're healthier, but they tend to be more fitness related, and addiction to just trying to stay in shape. I was sharing with you the interview that I did with a gentleman, John Graham, and for the first half of his life, he was addicted to the adrenaline rush and just did crazy things to get that, involved in mountain climbing, very dangerous mountain climbing, in going to different war zones to get that adrenaline rush, and it just got worse and worse for him till he finally broke that addiction and found the meaning of his life. The purpose of his life. So that's just one example of an addiction. Yours was a different form, and I want to explore that with you, and I appreciate you coming on the show to talk about it.
Oh, thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me, and it's a pleasure. And it's interesting, I think, to your point. Yes, I think addiction to well-being, it's amazing, right? I don't know, it's sometimes overdoing something can always give a little, you gotta give or take.
Yeah.
But listen, if you're gonna err on some side, that's the way to go. And happy to share a little bit of my journey because it's interesting. One of the biggest learnings, well, there's a lot of learnings, but one of the biggest pieces of addiction that I still have a little bit of question today is that it's so silent and it goes progressively, and you really don't see until you're way deep in it. It's
until it's too late.
Yeah. And that's something that, looking back, I still don't have all the answers, and I don't think I ever will. But when it evolves, like, hey, when did I cross that line type of thing? And it's really murky because it just kind of keeps going, going, going. And then you wake up one day and say, whoa, like, how did I get here? And it's a journey for sure.
I think about, whether it's well-being or drinking or whatever, when does it go from kind of just a passion or an enjoyment to start getting and becoming something that overtakes you? And I guess, is it the point when you can't stop, where it's just uncontrollable?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say to points there. I think one is when you start realizing on the progression that it's having some sort of negative negative effect in your life,
Hmm.
meaning it's like, hey, I'm so into whatever that is that I'm having to give other things that are important to me, right? And so let's say spending less time with your family or things like this, right? And I'm not saying, for example, with work, because there's always ebb and flows where there's times it is what it is and you have to compromise. But typically speaking, if you're giving up something frequently that you really value because of that one thing, that's kind of the warning light popping up, say, hey, there may be something here. And then, yes, the second piece is when I think when it really gets into addiction, a deep addiction is when, yeah, you can't control, you can't give that up or really have a hard time. Because when I was like really deep in my addiction, I was planning my entire day. Every morning I would wake up, it's like, okay, how I'm gonna get to drink throughout the day. And so I would plan, okay, I have this meeting, I have this, I have this, I have that. So what's gonna be the points where I'm gonna get alcohol and sustain my high throughout the day and then later, and that's how deep it can get.
Yeah, you got quite clever, and I've known people who were alcoholics who were quite crafty at finding ways to get those drinks and try to hide it from others. Is there something chemically different about you, do you think, of people that become alcoholics? Is there a chemical difference in our brains or bodies that make you more prone to having an addiction like this?
Yes. Yes, there is. And it's interesting because after I got sober, probably it was about 9 years sober. No, sorry, probably almost around 7 or 8 years sober. I heard a podcast about Dr. Higgins, and she was talking about biomarkers because she works specifically mostly with people that has issue with law and goes to trial or whatever and try to help them through that lens and get them help um, from that perspective. So I listened and then I did my own biomarker, and then it's interesting. So it's not like you have, it's not a black and white answer that you get that say, oh, okay, you have the addiction gene type of thing. But you have a lot of things that are not quite working as it's supposed to. So, for example, had a lot of genes that are not operating as they should have, right? Either you have half that's not working or is completely kind of broken. And that creates that propensity, right, to have riskier behavior. And to your point earlier about these other guests that you had about like seeking that adrenaline, and that right leads to behavior that is more prone to get you there. And I think the best way that I heard someone explain, I even don't know who that was, is almost like that there's people that are born and you're born towards the end of the cliff, right? So you're that much closer to having a problem. So then someone that is deemed, without any predisposition. So you're born here and then, hey, here's the cliff. I was born here type of thing. But then there's a lot of choices that I've made and, has a lot to do with your environment, with the influences, your habits, of course. So yeah, all of that then really can create that perfect environment and predisposition to get you, in a bad space.
Yeah, yeah. I had a great group of friends growing up, but we had our crazy high school years and drank way too much. It was a big part of our social scene. But unfortunately, several of them, did struggle with alcoholism and have had to fight that. And fortunately,
most of them have come out of that on the good side. But yeah, maybe they were born too close to the cliff.
Yes, probably. And it's interesting because I started drinking like super early. My dad is an alcoholic. He never got sober. Sadly enough, he's still around, but he has full blown dementia, so his mind is not there, and he only stopped drinking when he kind of forgot about alcohol, and but so I started drinking very early on, and then also seeing that you kind of start emulating that. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. I think a lot of people say that coming from a positive side about kind of seeing their kids like, hey, if my kid's gonna drink, I want to teach him how to drink, right, and have that exposure. And but the longer you can delay, it's proven that is less likely that person may have a problem, right? So the youngest you start being exposed to alcohol or whatever substance, is your likelihood of having a problem down the road greatly increases. Because for me, that was the norm. To your point, I was going to nightclubs at 14. I was drinking like frequently at that age, and and getting drunk and having blackouts. So to me, having blackouts was normal. And then talk to people, say, what do you mean you don't have blackouts, right? So you really start having your baseline of what's normal. It's so far off from what really is and should be. And I start having things at 20 years old where you're having this high blood pressure and things like this, where people should pause and say, hey, listen, why a kid, right, relatively fit, young, that in theory shouldn't have any of these health issues, is having that. And uh but to your point earlier, you become very good about hiding, about lying, and fooling people. And I think the biggest relief for an addict is that most people don't think like an addict. So it's very easy, to manipulate, because people never think about, hey, okay, I will be drinking at 9 a.m., because no one that doesn't have a drinking problem doesn't think about that, right?
Yeah, we wouldn't suspect that you would be doing
Yeah.
that.
It's
Yeah.
like, it doesn't even, yeah. So it's interesting how that goes.
Well,
Yeah.
let's go back to your childhood. So you were born and raised in Brazil,
Yeah.
just outside of Sao Paulo. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Good memory. Yeah. So just outside of São Paulo, and pretty good um, childhood, right? My parents were not poor, we're not rich. We had everything that we needed. Had good friends. But I had some exposure, right? Or as I mentioned, my dad's an alcoholic, so I got to experience that, and I think that had so little traumas throughout, right? Even though he's good guy, good intentions. I think whenever you expose a child to someone that is addict, it brings a lot of insecurity, a lot of fear. So that was kind of a ongoing thing. And then lost my mom. We lost her mom when I was 12. So that was a big thing, right? A big thing that really, and then as you can imagine, that really accelerated my dad's drinking. Uh, then I started becoming really good at suppressing feelings. I didn't deal. I never got help, so I never talked to anyone about it. So I just start shoving, right, all those feelings, pretend everything is great when it wasn't, and then it becomes your way of life. And you're putting a good front where you're really broken inside.
Yeah.
And so I think that's all part of how it got exposed. And and growing up in Brazil at that time, now it's a little different, but the drinking age was officially 18, but you could go anywhere and get alcohol anytime. So that facilitated a lot my 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 lifestyle. Uh,
Did you,
and
growing up, you have brothers and sisters?
I have a brother, older brother. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
he suffer from any of this?
No, listen, he drank more than what I think is deemed normal, but he didn't have like an addiction problem like I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually he stopped too. I think as he saw my progression and we talked more and more, I think like many people nowadays, more about kind of a wellness and well-being. Yeah, that was my problem, and but no one knew, right, for many years. Well, no one knew really until I really kind of became sober. So I've been 11 years sober. So probably until about 12 years ago, no one knew. No one knew anything because also going back to kind of the childhood, it became my brand, right? Hey, Caesar is always partying. He's a fun guy to be around. That's how he is. So it became part of my identity. So it's like, throughout college and everything, it just kept evolving. And that's just like, hey, this is Caesar. This is how he is. And I never been, an angry guy, so never get into trouble. So then I really didn't have any fear about drinking and have blackouts because I knew I wouldn't do anything to harm or get into arguments. So even if I didn't remember, it's like, hey, couldn't be that bad, right?
What age did you start having blackouts?
To what I remember, oh, I would say early. I mean, I would say probably my late teens. From drinking, and but then it became kind of normalized in my 20s, where I would go out and remember the night up until a certain point, and then it's like who knows what happened. uh yeah.
Were you going to classes drunk?
Yeah, 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 going to classes drunk, could study drinking. um and then when I started working in 2001, well, actually even in Brazil, when I first start working, my first job was in 98, my first real job, right? In 98, uh, I was drinking there, right? It was an overnight position. So I had my group there that we would drink at night because there's not many people there, and you figure out a way to drink. And I was drinking during that. And then I took a little kind of break to some degree when I started as a career after college in 2001. But that was short lived because I was just talking to someone right before our call about how our industry, hospitality, it still revolves a lot about alcohol. And especially in the arena that I kind of worked in sales. There's always convention, there's always entertainment, there's always customers. So if you want an excuse to drink, it's always there. You can do that every day and be part of your job. So then that like became super easy access, and yeah, and then just kept going, going, going.
One of my friends who became an alcoholic was also in the hospitality industry. And I think the same type of thing, and he was on the, event side and just always a lot of drinking around what he was doing. And it was probably a lot easier for him to hide it. We didn't know. We knew that he was the fun guy.
Yeah,
Um,
there you go. Here's the fun guy.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
man. So when did you come to the States? You went to college and started your career in Brazil?
Yeah, so I did my first year of college in Brazil and got my first job there. And then I got an opportunity to transfer to Switzerland and finish my hospitality degree there. And that was fun, right? That was perfect because I was away. I used to work, for the school and bartend to make money and pay my bills. So I was bartending at the the uh, student bar. So I drank as much as I served, and and
Great
that
times,
was
huh?
just yeah, yeah. They were, and kind of not fun enough, but I don't know what's the word. But anyway, so I end up being asked by the school to roommate with a guy that was having problems. His name was Stolle, Norwegian kid, very shy, and so he was having trouble assimilating, and he had problems with alcohol and drugs. But anyway, the school said, "Hey, could you room with this guy and hopefully help him?" And we did. Amazing person, very very sweet, and we became friends. And it was crazy because I remember one day vividly. It was like a weekend. I don't know, Saturday or Sunday. He woke up like it was 8 a.m. or so, and we had a mini fridge. We had our beds that faced each other. Really, it's dorm, right? Very small. And then he grabs this vodka bottle from the fridge and starts chugging and take some pills, right? Whatever those pills was, I think like painkillers. And and I was thinking, I said, man, like this guy's messed up, right? This guy like didn't even register that I had a problem, right? Just because I didn't drink at 8 a.m. at that time. But at 10 a.m. I was drinking beers with my other friend, right? In another dorm. So that's how messed up it can be and how you can justify anything. Um, and yeah, so I even don't know why I went there, but
Well, I think your point though is I'm not messed up. Look at this guy.
oh
He drinks at 8 a.m. I don't start until 10. I should be fine.
yeah, oh, I'm fine. I don't drink at 8. I drink at 10.
Yeah. You
Uh,
might not have been the best guy to help him through
no,
this.
no, 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 not at all, not at all. Um, yeah, so that just it kept going. So so I stayed there 2 years, and you know living that kind of life. And then I got here in the US in 2001 to do a 1 year internship. And, 25 years later, it's still here. But
So that's what brought you here did you do any more college here in the States?
no,
You graduated in Switzerland?
in Switzerland and
Yeah.
then started here. And then the hotel I was at, they extended my visa. Then I met my wife, Laura, and the rest is history being here. And,
Yeah.
this is home now.
I'm curious, this is a little off topic, but there's a lot of talk about immigration to the States. We've got our 250th anniversary coming up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk, and it's fascinating watching with the World Cup, all of these people coming and they're fascinated. They're just in love with the things that they're seeing about
Yeah.
America,
Yeah.
which we haven't seen in a long time. You hear a lot about, well, what's wrong with America?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to go back to your experiences of coming here to the States. Kind of what drew you to the United States and what kept you here?
Yeah, that's a great question. Don't think I ever had that question. So two things. One, I never really wanted to live here. I didn't say, "Hey, I want to live in the US." Right? I wanted to get experience because here is the best place to get well, I don't know the best, but one of the best markets to get experience from a hospitality perspective.
You
Right?
wanted it on your resume that
Exactly.
yeah.
Great way to start a career. And then my plan was to possibly go to Brazil or Europe or I don't know, somewhere. But it was interesting, actually, even growing up in Brazil. Yeah, I didn't have a good view of the US, to your point. And I think that goes back to, uh, I don't know if it's the politics or policies, regardless Republican or Democrat, right? But a lot of people outside of the US view the U.S. is getting, uh, portraying a superior image than other countries, right? Hey, we have the power, we'll go and try to fix here, or you should be doing that. So I think that's, at least from my experience and my opinion, that that was what wasn't positive about the US, right? I got a chance to come here and we spent the summer a year after my mom passed. So I had a host family for for a month, and I loved. I stayed in San Diego and LA, and it was amazing. And then when I got here, amazing people. To your point, is very. The U.S. is an amazing place. Great people, very diverse, very accepting, and I think from my experience on living in other countries and visiting other countries, I think what really is very unique about the US is how easy it is to live here, right? You don't need to make a lot of money to be able to finance a house, for example. Uh, Financing in other countries is very hard, right? And it's here, access to jobs is fairly, there's a lot of options, right? Like in Brazil, for example, if you lose your job, you're screwed. Good luck finding a job in 2 years from now, and you're going to get paid half. So there is these things, and so it's very easy here to live, and it's very flexible, very accessible. So that was something that I was pleasantly surprised, and the people are very welcoming, uh, and yeah, I really, really enjoy living here. And I think probably that's what people experience. Like, hey, what I thought about the US or about Americans and what I see on TV, it's not everything, right? Maybe a 5, 10% or whatever, but people are welcoming there, and yeah.
I think that's what you see all these posts right now, social media posts from people around the world coming here, and that's what they're experiencing. It's not what they had been
Yeah.
hearing and reading and seeing in the news.
Yeah.
When you come to the people of the
Yeah.
country, that they're having experiences that they just didn't imagine.
Yeah, yeah. And I think to your point about, because if you look at Americans, almost everybody has a fairly relative immigrant in their families, right? So a lot of people here say, "Hey, I'm, Italian. I'm, whatever, Jewish, African." So there is this very deep roots here of fairly relative, because we're a young country, right? 250 years old. It's not an old country. So I think there's a lot of that still, that people, despite what the immigration law should be or what it is, that people understand that, listen, there is values, because my grandfather came here, right, with nothing, and from whomever. And so I think there's a lot of that lenses that Americans know from their own personal experience in their families, that they relate to others.
Yeah, both of my wife's parents, they've passed, but they both immigrated from Holland
Yeah.
right after World War II. My grandfather immigrated from Holland.
Yeah.
Um, my on my dad's side, on my mom's side, they were pilgrims. They came back here at the very beginning, back in the, I don't know, 1600s or something. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I've got some old American blood in me too.
There you go. You have a good mix, like from the old to the new, you know? Yeah.
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 Well, let's get back to the other story. So you come to the States, you get your internship. Um, what's your kind of state of alcoholism at that point? Are you aware of that you have an issue?
No,
No.
no, no, not for many years. Mm-mm. Uh,
And is the drinking getting even worse and worse each year?
yes, yes, yeah, I would say for my 20s, it kept increasing, but still, well, why it didn't catch my attention is that I wouldn't, for example, rarely I would hide or make a point to drink during the day, right? Intentionally.
Yeah.
So, but then at night, okay, bring on the Jack and Cokes, like would be a list. There was one, there was once in a hotel, I think it's on my book, um, that we entertained some customers in the restaurant, And man, there was probably like, 16 Jack and Cokes on the bill. And the general manager the next morning, right, kind of start reading like all the bill, the bars like this long, and he was okay reading all the things, So when he read the Jackson Coke, everyone looked at me. They knew that was my
All
my
16
thing.
were yours?
All 16.
Oh, man.
So we lost privilege of signing for rightfully so. So it's things like this. It was like out of control, but was, I don't know, I was still, having fun. I could still justify. So I didn't see that for a long time. I really start seeing that on the last probably 2, 3 years before acknowledging that I had a problem and then trying to get sober.
How
Because,
bad? You shared with me before, but maybe you can, for the listeners, how bad did it get for you in terms of
oof, it
what
was
you were
bad.
doing to
Yeah, it was
keep
bad.
this?
Yeah. So Rob, to like the real intense years, if drinking all those Jack and Cokes are not intense
If
enough.
that wasn't enough.
Yeah. It it was kind of the last 3 years, 3, 4 years, to the point where, yeah, yeah, 3, 4 years, where I was really intentionally, to the discussion earlier, planning my entire day around drinking, right? So basically, what that would look like, I'll go start my day drinking wine, right on before going to work, to kind of get get going, and then figure out kind of how to drink mid morning, and then at lunchtime I'll walk to whatever little package store and get those little vodka bottles, and then mix with Red Bull or just chug on its own, and keep that in the afternoon, and then in the evening go to the restaurant or the bar, because I would figure out a way to, right, make it official and make that part of the job, and then would get home, and then drink at home what I would deem to be a normal, a cup of beers or a couple glass of wine with dinner with my wife, and then go in the garage and do hidden drinking, right? I would have stuff hidden in my car, so I'd go in the garage and chug whatever I had. And then, for example, I told you this when we first connected, and how you get so clever is like, I would plan, okay, if I go to Publix, if I go to Whole Foods, I would estimate what is a fair expenditure, so I can tell, my wife Laura, if she was ever to question me, hey, why you're going there all the time, or why you're spending, right? I'll be able to say, hey, I bought lunch or I bought breakfast. Same thing with gas stations. I'll go to gas stations and say, hey, open pump number 5, and I'll pump half tank instead of full tank, and then I'll buy those spiked up iced tea or whatever they're selling that would equate to a full tank. So it'd be just one charge, and then should never question a gas bill, thinking that I'll be drinking. So that's the extent that you go in your mind, and you still justify that. It's still like, hey, it makes sense. You don't think that this is beyond. But then, to your point, Rob, it gets to, right, you start having signs from life that is like, hey, this is not gonna work. And amazingly enough, from a work perspective, I always performed. I was still getting promoted or great performance. So it was never an issue. Never
Did
lost it.
anyone at work know, do you think? Any your colleagues, bosses, or suspect?
I would imagine, not that anyone told me, but I would imagine I would have to be smelling like alcohol, even
Yeah,
despite
you
all
would think
my
so. I mean, you run into someone who's had a drink or two, and
you
I mean, I have
smell.
one drink, and my wife knows that I've been drinking.
Yeah. So, and that's the things like, no one ever told me. Eventually there was something that happened that everyone knew, that I was, drinking hiding at work. And I can tell you that later. But yeah, I don't. No one ever came to me and said, "Hey, I think you have a problem" or anything. And I think, you know, people feel uncomfortable about that, right? Even if you know or suspect, people are like, how do I approach, or what do I say? Is it really on me to say something? And I know it's tricky. It's a trick situation, and unfortunately, with this disease, until someone is ready to change, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I know people that have been to jail 5 times, lost everything, lost family, went bankrupt, and still, wasn't enough. They kept going, kept going, kept going. So, there is no logic with addiction. So either that person is going to go all the way to the grave, or at some point, for some reason, is going to have, an aha moment and say, okay, I have an opportunity here. Let me take it, because just with logic, you can't get there, and you
Yeah.
can't force someone get sober.
It doesn't matter what they say to you if you're not ready.
No.
Yeah. I had another one of my friends, I'm thinking back now, and we started suspecting. We had no idea how bad it was, but we were suspecting. And I remember we went out to dinner with him and tried to talk to him,
Yeah.
and that failed. And what it eventually took was his boss knew, and his boss sat him down and said, "Look, I'm going to have to fire you if you don't get this under control." And I guess he was ready to change, because that put the fear of God in him, because he just did not want to face losing his job. He had already lost his wife. I mean, that destroyed his marriage. Um, but that did it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I think that whenever people ask my opinion, and again, this is from my experience, right? I'm not a professional in that, I'm just an expert on my journey. Is like, I think it's having that, where I had success and finally got sober, was really that balance between love and support and accountability. Because for years, my wife, so Gabby, our daughter, she was born. When my wife got pregnant, I started drinking a lot. That intensified a lot.
Really?
And yeah, a lot. And then we really got crazy from there. And so, as a new mother, she was very focused on our daughter, of course. So that allowed me to, drink even more. And then, so she knew something wasn't right, but she couldn't figure out, right? And then she started telling me, like, back in the days, like, hey, you're not the guy that I married. I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't recognize you anymore, right? And she would see me with my coworkers. I remember I hosted a Christmas office party in the house, and she says, I never saw you so disconnected from the people you work with. And so I think that's where to your point, you start getting the signs and all that. But I remember, any and every time should come at me confronting or, like, attacking, and rightfully so,
Yeah.
because, right, you're putting up with a lot of lies and you don't know what's going on. Then I was very good at flipping the tables, right? And then trying to make her question herself or whatever. So, and what I'm saying that is that usually just coming at it, it usually has the opposite, you know. But I think it's like similar to your example from the boss, and, doesn't always work, but it's like, you come from a place of care and say, listen, I know that, you have a problem, and I'm here to support you, help however I can. But, right, if you don't do it, this is the consequence, right? So you're finding that balance between showing love, showing compassion, which, that person needs more than anything, but also letting that person know is like, okay, but there is a accountability factor. There is a cutoff of my support, right? It's not infinite. And I think that's when it doesn't always work, because if that person is not ready, that won't work. But that's where I see the best chances, where people feel safer to open up and acknowledge they need help. Because, if you're just being attacked, and or questioned, right? Usually our things what defend, right? Is like, hey, I don't feel safe. I'm not gonna. But when you feel understood, when you feel, hey, this is a safe, that's your best chance of saying, you know what? Yes, I have a problem. I need help, and let's go there. But
Have
also,
you
yeah, go ahead.
have you explored why you were drinking so much? Was it the pain of losing your mom? Was there something there that you were trying to numb?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that was numbing, right? Numbing from, from many things, right? Not feeling. Um, so I think, yeah, my mom's number one by far, and then my father, he gave a lot of attention to uh, study, right? He didn't care about anything that I did other than, hey, what are your grades in school? And I was a really bad student, really bad. So I think also, you know, I felt less than, right?
You
Not
weren't living
worthy.
up to his expectation.
Yeah, not worthy. And then you know, and then also I think not developing emotionally. I think then it compounds, right? Then you start experiencing other things in life, and you don't share emotions, you don't open up, you start compressing everything, so everything compiles, and to your point, you just keep numbing, 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 and that's how you cope with it. And it's not sustainable.
What what brought you out of it? What was your moment that, or was there any one moment, or was it a sequence of events that finally got you out of it?
Yeah, also a few things. So one aspect was the physical, to these discussions, right? I start getting the shakes. I was like shaking pretty bad. So I had to then drink to stop shaking, right? Uh, and I was forgetting conversations that I was having. So let's say we're talking today, I would wake up tomorrow and not know what we spoke about. So then that starts scaring me, because like at work, right, I'll go in meetings and not know. So, um, so that was kind of, and then I start having panic attacks, and so you start seeing, man, this is, there's no more lying to yourself from that, because you're you can't disagree with shake, right? So that was one. Another one was really, my family. I think that, Gabby was 2 or 3 at the time. And I knew that if I kept that way, my wife would divorce me, because she'll start seeing like, hey, this is something's off, is not working. So but then I looked Gabby one day, and I said, man, what am I doing to her? Right? The thing that I hold so much anger and despise for my dad, I'm doing worse to her. So it's like, I don't want to be that person. I want to allow her to have the best possible life and foundation. I want to be in her life. So really, those are the two main things that really kind of helped me. It's like, okay, I got to make a choice here, because this is coming to an end.
Did your wife at that point understand or know the extent that you were drinking?
No,
No,
no, no, no, no, not even a tenth
no.
of that. But it's interesting, because in the beginning she was angry, because she thought that I was choosing to, right? Which that's something that I struggle too, because to some degree is a choice, right? Of course, choice plays into it, because I'm choosing to go and seek the drink and all that. But no addict ever chooses to be an addict, right? No one's going to say, hey, man, I'm going to wake up and be addicted to cocaine or crack, or you like the high. So it's, you know, but there's a choice piece, right? I don't want to make excuses too. Um, but she realized when I was really trying, she saw that I was trying and I was really having difficulty, like, because I had a few moments of sobriety and then relapsed. That's when she realized, she's like, wow, he he's trying, and that's where that compassion side came. That was really kind of my awakening moment in a way. Is then I relapsed after 6 months sober, and then I called her and she said, did you drink? And I would always lie. And then I said, yeah, I drank. And then I broke down and I said, I just don't know what to do anymore. I'm so lost. And then she said, listen, I know you're trying. I'll be with you in this journey. We're going to do it together. And I don't know, it was just kind of that moment where, I felt some sort of peace, and I think that helped me kind of just accept, and thankfully from that day on, being good. But it's yeah, that was kind of the big moment for me.
Did you join AA at that time, or
Yeah.
was that your vehicle
Yeah,
to?
and I was in AA for a few months there.
You
And
were.
to your point about my roommate in college, I had the same reaction going to AA because I walked in AA and said, "Oh man, I have a problem, but these people, they are really messed up."
Maybe I'm not so bad off after all.
It's like it's so crazy, man. And then after a few months, you start getting clarity. But that's the thing. You always can justify and say, oh, just because I didn't lose my job or I didn't do this, because the line is so thin between, people that are homeless and someone like us when it comes to addiction, that I came to recognize after. So, but yeah, I had that judgment, and I was lying, right? I was lying to my sponsor in the beginning and all that. Um, but AA, really helped save my life. I went after my relapse. I went every day to 90 days. Never really enjoyed that much because it holds you accountable. It's a little bit of a cult in my view. I mean, it's not there's people that love, and I have friends that love and go every day and been there for 30 years. And there's people that is like, don't love as much, but it works because we have a great support system, and it's not always pleasant, but it's if you follow they steps, chances are very, very high for it to work.
Could you have gotten out of it without AA?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a great question.
Sounds unlikely.
Sounds unlikely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What you lied to your sponsor. What role did the sponsor play for you in reaching
Oh, very
sobriety?
good. Yeah, because the good thing with these sponsors is that, you know, uh, they came from where you came from. So they know your tricks. They lived it.
They've been through it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's much harder, right, to fake it and to going through. So I think it's important that, anybody that is going through something, even if you don't go to AA or narcotics or whatever is their problem, uh, just get someone that you can relate to, right? Not that's going to let you slide, but at least that you feel comfortable to have a good connection and be transparent, right? Because in the end of the day, it's really their, that's the the one thing that gives me hope about humanity when you see negative news and all that, is when you walk into a room full of strangers. These people never met you, but man, they'll do so much for you, to help save your life. That is like, wow, that's like that's unconditional love right there. That
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. You said something earlier that made me think of something. You mentioned when you broke down to your wife and you said, "Hey, I just feel lost." And it made me think of the song Amazing Grace.
Ah,
I once
yeah.
was lost, but now I'm found. What role did faith or God play in your recovery?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely played a big role, right? It brought me back and brought me to a realization that, there's definitely a higher power, and that, I'm not the center of the universe, and there is a greater purpose. So I think that, yeah, it's a big role. It's a big role, and I think, to your point, that's one piece that a lot of people struggle with AA, because it's a big part of the foundation. And that's what I tell people in the beginning, because a lot of people going in, right? They usually, very few fully embrace that part from the get go. Um, but say, listen, go and take whatever you can, right? If it's 5%, that's fine, take 5%, it becomes 10, 15, and so on. uh Everybody has their relationship or their belief, but yeah, that was a big piece, and remains a big piece for me.
I had heard, and I'm trying to make sure I get this correct. You can probably correct me, that the founders of AA, one was a Christian and
Yeah.
believed firmly that God and Jesus had to play a role. Another, I don't know if he was an atheist, but he didn't have the same belief. But he relented and said, "We've got to make it part of the charter that you've got to have faith in some higher being,
Yes.
whoever that is."
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, that's a great point, and I don't know the psychology or the really thing behind, but I would, venture to say that it helps take the focus, and really, it forces you to think outside of your own little head and life, because a lot of, if not all of alcoholics, usually, or addicts, it's some sort of, numbing, or there's something, right, that they're dealing with internally, that we got there because of the, um how you're coping with yourself, and it's very something, a problem that's self-centered to some degree. So I think that helps to change the perspective, and really open up. That's like, hey, there's a greater good. There is something there that can, um, help you live your purpose, whatever that may be. So yeah, that is correct.
I think the other benefit, if you can find it, is the realization, like you were not feeling worthy from your dad, right? And that was one of the things that you were numbing. But if you can come to the realization that there is a God who loves you,
Yeah.
and you are worthy, and you were wonderfully made, and you
Yeah.
do have a purpose here, right? And if
Yes.
you can come to that belief and just know in your heart that that's true, perhaps you don't need to numb yourself, that you have that acceptance, even if you're not finding it here from the people on earth.
Yeah. Yes. So true. Because I think that, everybody has something to offer, right? Something to share, something that we're either gifted, at, or you've been blessed with, or whatever lenses people want to see. But, and everybody has their perception of what successful should be, or, uh, but like, what was successful in the view of my dad, wasn't successful for me, and that's okay. And I came to terms that he was trying his best, and that was his way, right, to show love and try to prepare me to the best of his ability. And but came to terms that, listen, that was his view, and to your point, I have my take. I don't know what's right, what's not, but I try to put whatever I see as my areas of strengths to the positive, to hopefully help others, help myself live a better life and make a difference.
Yeah. I think that's a good comment about your dad. I was just having breakfast this morning with a friend, and we were talking about parenthood and things that we wish we had done differently, and
Mm,
maybe wouldn't have messed our kids up so badly. But we did the best we could, we did with
yeah.
what we thought was the best at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%, and, yeah, and that's why, like, I'm very open with my daughter, she read the book, she knows about my story because I tell her, it's like, "Listen, everybody's is trying their best, and, doesn't mean that it's the right thing or it's good enough or whatever, but, um, you gotta have the lenses to understand that, it's easy to judge and to point fingers, but yeah, it took me a long time to kind of let it go, because I realized, like, how much my dad was struggling as well, and he tried his best, and that was
Yeah.
his best, and is it good, bad, or but that was his best. So I gotta accept that and
And he was
be
struggling with the loss of his wife. So he
yeah,
had a lot to deal with too.
yeah, yeah, with two teenager boys,
Yeah.
and my mom was fairly young. They were young, so yeah, that's a pretty big shock. Pretty big shock. So yeah, how to cope with that? Yeah.
It's too bad that he didn't find something like AA though, and find the inner strength or desire to change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think it goes back, especially with men, it's getting better, but man, we gotta open up more. And, we just suppress so much. We don't
Oh yeah.
share. We really don't share when we're struggling. And listen, it's not about not having any filters or washing your dirty laundry publicly or with people, but we gotta get in a space where we feel comfortable sharing with each other that, yeah, we're not okay. You don't gotta pretend to be okay or tough or all the time. And, cause your mind or body can't sustain living like that for your life. And then, either addiction, suicide, or whatever happens because it's just not sustainable.
That's so true, Caesar. Even my closest friends, there's so many things I was not sharing with them of things that I was going through and things in my family. And
Yeah.
it's only probably in the last couple of years that I've started opening up with folks and
Yeah.
feeling comfortable enough or strong enough to share it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's funny. I would imagine, I can guarantee that once you opened up, they shared something,
Yes.
right?
Yes. That things that I didn't know that they had been through. Yeah, it's absolutely true. One of my friends, I remember, he had been sober for maybe a year, and I went out and visited them, and I asked his wife how it's going, and she said, "Rob, it's amazing. I finally have my husband back." And I wonder if Laura felt that way about you, when you.
Yes. 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 For sure. For sure. And finally, she's over. It took many years for her to, um, you know, kind of let her guard down and really trust me again,
Yeah,
because in the beginning you're like, okay, he's sober but he's gonna relapse, or is it real? And yeah, and it's just a wonderful moment, and I feel that way. I feel like, man, I finally found myself again. And that little boy that was lost for many years, and
yeah.
it's a great feeling. It's a great
How
feeling.
how old's your daughter now?
She's 15.
15.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
So
she's 15.
this happened, you said you've been sober for what, 11?
11.
Yeah. So she's known you for most of your sober years, fortunately.
Thankfully. Oh,
Yeah. Does
thankfully.
she even remember those days?
Uh,
Th That's
I
good.
would imagine subconsciously, right? I believe
Maybe.
there's some impact there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, thankfully, the trust is, the trust there. Like yesterday, she had a swim meet, and she was so happy when she saw me, right? Me and some other dads swam against the coaches just for fun, and I was reflecting. I was like, oh, thank God that I'm in this place, because this is what life's all about. I'm so thankful that you know I can look her in the eye. And to your point, I'm not perfect. I'm not a great, the best parent, but at least I can look her in the eyes like, hey, I'm doing my best, and I know she feels and knows that, and despite not being perfect, and that is great. That
Well,
is great.
Cesar, if you want to know the top 5 things not to do, let's go have coffee and I can. I
I'll take it. I'll take any learnings.
can... Wow. Well, let's have a little fun here. I have a rapid fire round
Cool.
that I like to do. Just quick answers. What's the boldest risk you've ever taken?
I believe in myself. I think just really, yeah, taking that jump, that hey, I can be me.
Yeah. You don't need to be the fun you, the alcohol induced you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're much better off. The real
Well,
Caesar is a
by
mu-
far.
much better person.
Yeah.
Um, what's one failure that's taught you the most?
One failure that taught me the most. Yeah, I think going back to parenting, I think is when uh, reacting versus pausing and answering, right? When you react out of anger or frustration, it teaches you how quickly you can lose your ability to make your argument or share your view, because you lost yourself in the process.
We went through that a lot and had to learn, count to 10, walk out of the room, do whatever you need to do. Don't respond in the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Usually, one thing that I remember from my dad years ago, he said, Caesar's when first emails came out, and he said, Caesar, never reply to an email when you're angry or emotional. And that's
Yes.
something that held so true. And I keep in mind this day when I'm not in a good space, I'm going to walk away and come back later.
Yeah, I had a boss, Mark, who taught me that and said never respond. If it's positive news, put it in an email. If it's anything negative, pick up the phone. Go
Yeah.
see them.
Yeah, so true. So
Yeah,
true.
it was good advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your morning routine in 5 words or less?
Morning routine, positive affirmations. Yeah, I do positive affirmations almost every day.
Do you? What's that look like? Is that journaling? I saw you have a journal on your website that you can download.
Yeah, yeah. I don't do that journal. I do a podcast
Oh,
that's
okay.
the same every day, and it's
Yeah.
just to frame my mindset on that. And it's a big difference when the days that I don't do. Usually you feel that eventually. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting. Is
yeah.
there a faith element to that?
This one, no. This one, no. I mean, there is some spiritual things, but
A
yeah,
spiritual element. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
so on the faith side, what does trusting God look like for you now?
Yeah, well, that's something also that I do usually in the morning and nights, right? I talk to God, and uh, really is allowing yourself to really be fully open and grateful. I think that one of the biggest shift and reason of my sobriety is that gratitude lenses that not life's not always perfect, or you're right, there's always something to look at the negative side, but there's usually a lot more on the positive side. And that to me is a big thing with spirituality, and being thankful, right, for that. And so yeah, that's a big piece for me.
I'm learning more and more how important gratitude is and that attitude of gratitude. And the Bible teaches us that. You read the book of Psalms, it's like almost every psalm is give thanks, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And no matter what the times or hard times David's going through or whoever wrote the psalm, it's like give thanks, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
My enemies are trying to kill me, but I'm giving thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. The other day I came across Warren Buffett tippet that's about that because
Yeah,
he was giving an example like when something bad happens to you, acknowledge that, but then give thanks for three other things, right? So let's say, hey, I got a flat tire on the way to the work, the meeting. I'm gonna miss the meeting. Yeah, that sucks. But you think that hey, you have a car, you have another tire, and that you're healthy or
yeah,
whatever, right? That
yeah.
is, and I think to your point, it helps reframe and give thanks even when it's not be Pollyanna or crazy, but it's like it really helps reframe and keep the mind away from what we're lacking to what we have in abundance.
I had a guest early on, Rob Swimer, who lost his wife at a young age, and he wrote a book about recovering from that. And he said something interesting that gratitude is a big piece of what he found, but when we're being grateful, there's actually a chemical change in your brain, and you can't physically be anxious or angry when you're thinking and expressing gratitude. There's a physical component there, right? So it's a very good thing for us to do.
Yeah, that, for sure. Never. I don't think anyone had anything bad in life for being grateful.
Yeah. And it's not always easy, but you're right. You always can find something. It's kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous, where you mentioned, you go in and there's always someone has it worse off. Now, that did not play in a positive way at that moment because you're thinking, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah,
But no matter what you're going through, I've found
yeah.
you always run into someone whose life challenge is even worse than what you're going through. I guess that's in
So
the
true.
misery loves company component, perhaps.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah, but always something to be grateful for. All right, last
Yeah.
one. What's your healthiest addiction now?
Healthy as addiction. Yeah, it's. I think it's working out. I try to do as much jujitsu as I can. With my travel is really hard, but it's my favorite. I enjoy because it can really be in the moment, right? You can't be practicing and be thinking about I forgot this or that because then you're getting choked. So
Is that a Brazilian martial art?
yeah, well, yes, it kind of started in Brazil. It's a evolution from judo that came from, when some Japanese immigrants came to
Hmm.
Brazil, and then the Brazilian jiu-jitsu evolved from there.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, but now it's pretty spread around and
yeah, yeah. I didn't realize until I started traveling to Brazil on business that there's a huge Japanese population there. Isn't it the largest population outside of Japan?
largest. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
huge. My last year in São Paulo, I lived in Liberdade, which is the Japan town in São
Uh-huh.
Paulo. It's massive, a lot of like first generational Japanese, and yeah, great. So you big Japanese influence. Yeah, so it's the largest. So yeah, amazing culture, amazing food, great people.
Yeah, great sushi in São
Oh,
Paulo.
unbelievable! Great
Yeah,
sushi, great
you wouldn't
sushi.
expect it.
Yeah,
I
great
remember having
sushi.
sushi in Mexico City, and they put a lot of cheese in it.
Really?
Yeah. And I didn't think it went well with sushi.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine. I like it as plain as it gets, right? I
Exactly.
like my traditional.
Yes, exactly. Have you, now that you've been sober, have you felt yourself susceptible to other addictions like addiction to work that we talked about?
Yeah, yeah. I think to your point, right? And I think it's part of something that I always will have to be very aware. Is that yeah? I have the tendency of doing all or nothing, and it's really challenging for me to find harmony and so yeah, so usually I'm always over indexing something.
Mm,
And to your point, I would love to be on self care and wellness. That'll be my
yeah.
ideal. But yeah, work and even like addiction early on, chasing titles and getting the recognition, getting the shout outs, because, all my life I was like, you're not good enough type of thing. So yeah, that is certainly a big one. Now I don't care less about my title. I just want to have a job that I enjoy, right? And can provide for my family, get some savings to eventually retire, but not chasing uh titles and what's perceived to be success and external, because that's how I lived, right, my entire life. And even in the height of my addiction, someone could look in my life and say, wow, this guy has a lot going on for him, right? And I was so broken, couldn't be further from the truth. So like now, it's still susceptible to perception and external, and who doesn't like to, right, get kudos and all that. But I'm much more looking, it's like, hey, I just want to be at peace. I want to look at myself in the mirror and feel okay with who I am and how I'm living.
Chasing titles, I suffered from that, and
Yeah.
I really feel for everyone who worked for me in those years. I mean, I must have been the worst boss in the world, because all I cared about was chasing that title and my promotion and my recognition. I don't know if it was acceptance from my dad, or maybe I was in competition with all my brothers. I don't know what it
Mm,
was, but it was awful, And
mm.
when I finally lost that, I hope I was a better boss, for my last couple of years of working. Yeah, that was just horrible.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is tough how, right, how that journey is. It's crazy, and probably took you a while to realize that, right? I would
Oh
imagine,
yeah,
or yeah,
yeah. It it took me a long time to mature out of that. Your book, The Powers of Addiction: Finding Freedom in Acceptance and Recovery, is the freedom in accepting who you are, or is it
yeah,
acceptance from others?
yeah, yeah. Accepting who I am. Yeah,
It's
it's
more
just that.
personal.
Yeah, yeah. It's just the freedom that you get when you let things go, and it's like, okay, I'm okay being me, right, and
Yeah,
accept who I am and finding myself again. Uh, and that was really, I think, the biggest thing I gained through addiction, getting sobriety. It's that piece, is that freedom that's like, oh, I'm at peace with who I am, right? And that was an amazing feeling.
yeah. And I think that's something that people need. They don't have to be alcoholics or have an addiction, right? There are a lot of people that suffer from just not being at peace who they are and not feeling loved or accepted by God, for a variety of reasons. But finding that acceptance of yourself, and that is a challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It is, because a lot of times we create our own narrative in our minds, or whatever that self-worth is, or what is expected of us, or what we think other people wants of us. And it's like, listen, to your point about work, when I was chasing that, I thought, oh, I gotta behave this way, or I gotta do this, or and it's like, no, I'll be myself, because if I'm not accepted or I don't fit somewhere, it's okay. It's because I don't belong there, and it's gonna open up a door to where it's a better fit, and eventually, right, you do that. So, but it's a journey, right? It takes a lot of learning to get there.
Kind of funny, Caesar. My story. So, my given name is Robert. I was born Robert. Nobody called me Robert. My mom would call me Robert when she was mad, right? But I was Rob or Robbie when I was young. But when I started my career, I wanted to be Robert. I wanted to be the professional Robert. So I had this professional persona that wasn't me.
Mm,
And I wasn't really being myself for a good chunk of my career. And then finally I said, this is silly, I'm Rob. So I changed my name on my business card. I started going as Rob, you know, and it made a big difference.
yeah,
I had this false identity that I was trying to portray.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We all do that, right? You try to fit in
Yeah.
into, and a lot of times that's self-inflicted.
Well, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. It is crazy. It is crazy.
Well, just to wrap up, Cesar, thank you. This has been a really enjoyable but important conversation. I've really appreciated you opening up about it.
Of course. No, thank you, Rob. Thank you for the opportunity. Really enjoyed the conversation as well. And yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity to share because I think it's important. And again, right, I don't, hopefully sharing my story is not about preaching for people on how they should live or don't drink, right? Everybody lives their life, but really how I came about to share is that my hope is that, is to, there is always a way, right? Whatever challenge, whatever hurdle you have in your life, whatever that is, don't give up. Don't lose hope. There's always a way. There's people, there's family, there's faith, there's habits, so don't give up and find your path.
I think the challenge many times when we're struggling is we think, well, nobody knows what I'm going through. Yeah, this person had it tough, but they didn't go through what I went through, you know. And that makes it difficult. And my hope is, having bold journeys and sharing these stories. Yeah, we're all different. We do have different struggles, but there always is a way to persevere, to come out on top. And there are different paths, right? And just trying to share those. Do you have any just last words of advice to anyone who might be suffering from some sort of addiction today? I know we kind of talked about nothing you say can really change that, but any words of advice?
Yeah, two things really, number one is that you're loved despite of what you think or feel. You're loved and, you're worthy. So, don't give up. Don't
Yeah.
give up.
Yeah. Those are the two most important things.
Yeah, I think so. I think usually you feel really isolated and lost.
Yeah.
W- And yeah, so I think knowing that to me made a big, big difference. Big
Well,
difference.
Cesar, I had another woman on the show, Lisa, who suffered from this for a period. And those were the two things. She didn't feel loved and she
Mm,
didn't feel worthy.
mm,
And it took going through the program and having just the most wonderful sponsor. And her sponsor was, she described her as this old woman who just was infused with the love of God and translated that to her, and just wrapped her with love. And she realized that she is worthy and she is loved.
yes, yes, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
it really is, and made all the difference for her. Well, Cesar, thanks again. Wishing you success with the rest of your career, and mostly success with your wife and daughter. That's
Uh,
the most important, precious thing in the world.
yes, 100%. And likewise, Rob, keep up the great work and, cherish the great family of yours. So
Yeah,
thank
thank you
you.
so much.